After we got back together, I became the perfect girlfriend, independent and rational. Afraid that David would say I was sensitive and suspicious again, I deleted the location tracking app from his phone. Even if he went an entire day without reporting his whereabouts, I would not get angry. I would quietly do my own things. David and I became that enviable young couple again, in order not to damage our relationship. When David's colleague Ava sent him a message in the middle of the night, I pretended not to see it. David woke me up. There's an emergency on Ava's side. I'm going out for a bit. Don't overthink it. He wanted to continue explaining, but I interrupted him. Got it. Go ahead. David clearly did not believe me. After all, 1 month ago, Ava and I had argued with him until things became unbearable. Chapter 1. David's brows furrowed slightly, and his tone sank. Lisa, can you be a little understanding? I can't possibly cut off contact with all my colleagues because of you. I'm not stopping you. Hurry and go. I tilted my head slightly and avoided his touch. David's hand froze in midair just like that. Gradually, a trace of exhaustion appeared in the way he looked at me. Lisa, I'm at a critical point for my promotion right now. You need to be more tolerant. I gave a bored whatever. He could say whatever he wanted. I did not know how long he was gone, nor did I pay attention to when he came home. That night, I slept exceptionally peacefully. I no longer waited foolishly like before, waiting until, in the end, all I received was a barrage of accusations. Lisa, are you just trying to move yourself? I'm already exhausted. Please be quiet. At that moment, shock, anger, grievance, and helplessness chilled my whole body. I could not say a single word, but I had only wanted him to explain why. The last time he got drunk, Ava was the one who brought him home. Clearly, Ava had once been, in his words, a reckless fool who did not understand social etiquette. That night, David and I had a fierce argument. David did not apologize, nor did he offer any solution to the problem. He only kept giving me the cold shoulder. He was unreasonable like that, while I could not even find someone to argue with. Half a month later, when I pushed open the door and saw that David had already prepared dinner and was waiting for me to come home, my tears instantly began falling uncontrollably. In these 5 years, we had rarely even argued. It was the first time we had fought so badly. With red-rimmed eyes, he held me tightly in his arms. Lisa, let's stop arguing. It isn't worth it for an outsider. A sour feeling rose in my nose, and I was just about to nod and agree when I suddenly smelled an unfamiliar fragrance on him. Chapter 2. That gentle, sweet scent was like a young girl in the middle of a passionate romance. My stomach churned. But maybe he had gone out for social drinking. Was I really going to start another fight over a guess? Feelings always grew weaker the more people argued. I swallowed all the grievances in my heart. At that time, I still did not understand that loving someone else more than yourself would bring retribution. Lisa, I'm talking to you. David's voice pulled me back to reality. I blinked in confusion. Sorry. What were you saying just now? I didn't hear you. David's breathing became disordered for an instant. A moment later, he said, "The movie you've always wanted to watch has been released. I bought tickets. Do you want to go tomorrow?" I casually flipped through the book on my lap. I'm not going. I don't like that celebrity anymore. But didn't you like him for a long time? The calendar and tabletop decorations at home were all of him. Your cosmetics and clothes were also often from brands he endorsed. David subconsciously looked behind him, only to discover that the decorative pieces that had once been placed on the display shelf were gone. He looked at me in disbelief. How are they gone? I spoke calmly. I don't like him anymore, so of course I threw them away. David froze. Suddenly, he pulled me into his arms in a somewhat panicked way, his chin resting against the hollow of my neck, his voice low and hoarse. Then what do you like now? Let's go together, okay? There was a hint of pleading in his tone. I lowered my eyes. His arms wrapped tightly around me. My chest and back were both stained with his warmth. In the past, this kind of physical contact would have made me feel safe. But now, my mind was unusually calm. So calm that I was thinking, did he also lean close to someone else's ear and whisper sweet words? Would he compare me with someone else? In those occasional moments when he seemed distracted, was he thinking of me? Or of her? The air gradually became thin. Neither David nor I spoke. and only silence spread between us. After a long while, David rubbed the center of his brows. Lisa, you've really been strange lately. If something is making you unhappy, can't you tell me? Do you really want me to guess everything? Had I not told him before? Even if I had, would it have been useful? When I discovered that Ava was messaging him every day, I had already made a scene, but his calmness made me look like a madwoman. She and I are just normal colleagues. Not a single sentence has crossed the line. Lisa, what are you making a fuss about? You can check my phone anytime, and my location is on too. What else do you want? Do you have to tie me to yourself before you feel secure? How many times do I have to explain before you believe me? Do you really trust me that little? I did not understand whether it was that I did not trust him, or that he had never given me enough sense of security. He had things to talk about with Ava. They complained about bizarre clients they encountered, discussed what to eat for lunch, and talked about which routes near the company were suitable for a walk. More and more content unrelated to work appeared in their chat records. His sharp-tongued side, his cold-faced but soft-hearted side, all of them took on a real shape in those conversations. He shared his life with her. What he left for me was constant overtime, times I could never schedule with him, and a hurried back. Over time, I became more and more hysterical, while he became increasingly impatient. Until that night, I saw it with my own eyes. Ava kissed him. Chapter 3. Actually, in that instant, I wanted to run. I did not know why, but I always felt that even if I caught him in the act, David would still be perfectly righteous and would already have prepared his excuses. Once he truly got angry, I would begin doubting myself again. The topic would always circle back to how I was not considerate, not magnanimous, too controlling, and gave him too much pressure. But my legs seemed nailed to the ground, unable to move. It was as if someone had pressed pause on everything around me. The first person to see me was Ava. She gave me a provocative smile and instead pressed herself even closer to David, as if declaring war. When David met my gaze, he froze slightly and instinctively pushed her away. He strode toward me. Be good. If there's anything, we'll talk about it at home. Don't make a scene in this kind of setting. He gripped my wrist so hard it hurt. I followed the force of his hand and looked at him. The tie on his suit was the one I had tied for him that morning. Every piece of clothing he wore had also been matched and ironed by me personally. Everything was clearly so familiar. So why had it suddenly become so strange? David rubbed the center of his brows in frustration. She drank too much. I was only supporting her. She leaned in by herself. Today was the celebration banquet. We secured a major project, and everyone drank a bit too much. It's not safe for her to go home alone after drinking. I'll send her back first. Can you go home by yourself? The moment those words came from his mouth, my ears began buzzing. Staring at the lipstick mark on his cheek, endless bitterness spread across the tip of my tongue, hurting so much that my heart trembled. My tears finally broke down and slid down my face. David, even at a time like this, you still want to send her home first? What do you take me for? David lowered his eyes and stared at my red, swollen eyes. A flash of struggle passed through his gaze. Ava staggered over. Her eyes were red, and her voice choked with sobs. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have drunk so much. But everyone kept forcing David to drink, and I really couldn't bear to watch. Lisa, David has been too tired lately. He has to socialize until very late, and his stomach isn't good. Her tears fell drop by drop. A trace of pity flashed across David's face. Ava grabbed my sleeve again. Lisa, don't argue with him here. The clients haven't gone far yet. Think about David. If even his family starts making a scene, what will others think of him? If you can't stand me, you can hit me or scold me however you like afterward. I shook her off. Let go. She took the opportunity to fall to the ground. Her fair calf hit the stone steps, and blood instantly began to seep out. David hurriedly picked her up. His impatient voice came from above my head. Lisa, that's enough. I'll send her back first. You reflect on yourself properly. He carried Ava and turned to leave, leaving me frozen in place. Chapter 4. I returned home in a daze, nearly crashing into a car on the way. The lights in the house were off, leaving everything pitch black. I threw myself onto the sofa, wrapped my coat tightly around me, but still could not stop trembling. So cold. A cold that seemed to seep outward from the cracks of my bones. David had never spoken harshly to me before. When that thought surfaced, I froze. I remembered when we were in university, someone had gossiped, saying I was not worthy of him, that I had no family background, no connections, and relied only on my face. Back then, David carried a speaker, held a megaphone, and stood below my dormitory building. People from the entire building stuck their heads out to watch. Shui Munyan Hua's with you in my life drifted up from downstairs. He raised his head and shouted through the megaphone. In the future, I will definitely marry Lisa. No one is better than her. I'm the only one unworthy of her. Wearing a white shirt, he lifted his hand backward, and a huge hot air balloon rose behind him. On the red cloth floated my name. Colorful ribbons fluttered through the sky, and one piece landed in my palm. I looked down, and he was smiling at me. The sunlight edged him in gold, and the wind lifted his hair. Back then, I felt that he was my whole world. Even now, it was still hard for me to describe what I felt then. But now, the person hanging at the tip of his heart seemed to have changed. The clock ticked on. A flash of lightning cut across the window, followed immediately by a clap of thunder. My whole body trembled. I was afraid of thunder. After David found out, he accompanied me every thunderstorm day. The sound of his breathing was my tranquilizer. He would busily arrange cushions, pour warm water, cover me with a blanket, and coax me in a soft voice. Now I was the only one left. I moved my numb legs, wanting to wipe away my tears. But the more I wiped, the more tears came. My heart was as dead silent as the rain outside. Click! The living room light suddenly came on. David walked over and reached out to wrap an arm around my shoulders, wanting to pull me into his arms. I slapped the back of his hand away. My lowered hand would not stop trembling. I faced him directly and spoke in a hoarse voice. David, you betrayed me, didn't you? He did not coax me humbly as he usually did. Disappointment surfaced in his eyes. I was afraid you'd be scared, so I ran more than 10 red lights to get back, just so I could see you as soon as possible. And this is how you think of me? I bit my lower lip hard. He said Ava was only a colleague, but when she got drunk, he stayed with her. One phone call from her could call him away. Just now, Ava had posted on Moments, even at night. Someone thoughtfully warms my stomach. The picture was of a man's figure busy in the kitchen. During the time when I was afraid and terrified, he was warming someone else's stomach. David only thought I was being unreasonable. I did not know where I found the strength, but I grabbed the photo frame on the table and threw it at him. The frame flew past his forehead. He cried out in pain, and blood spread from the place his hand covered, facing those eyes filled with impatience. I only felt roaring in my ears, and all the strength drained from my body. Chapter 5. Glass shards fell, landing on the two radiant smiling faces in the photo. Between the past and the present, a gash had been brutally split open. I raised my head, my eyes completely red. David, where is your ring? If you can even take off your ring, what else are you unable to admit? His voice was cold and unfamiliar. What madness are you having now? You're one step away from installing surveillance on me. Aren't you tired? I froze, and even the strength to cry was gone. A very, very long silence followed. I suppressed the sobs in my throat and squeezed out the words one by one. David, do you still want a future with me? He did not answer, but he hesitated. Suddenly, I wanted to laugh, so badly that my tears almost fell. But when he saw my tears, he no longer felt sorry for me. All that remained on his face was irritation. His feelings had been real. His change of heart was real too. I opened my mouth and used all the strength in my body before finally squeezing out those 3 words. Let's break up. David froze. The expression on his face solidified bit by bit. He stared fixedly at me, but he could not find even the slightest trace of wavering in my eyes. Are you sure? I pushed him away and went to pack my luggage. As I packed, I held back my tears. He stood beside me, watching me, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. After an unknown length of silence, he suddenly strode over in 2 or 3 steps and kicked away the suitcase in front of me. Lisa, I'm asking you one last time. Are you sure you want to break up? I looked at him deeply and slowly stood up while supporting myself against the wall. Then can you guarantee that Ava will never appear in our lives again? He walked over and took my hand. I shook him off. He stared at me, and the disappointment and irritation in his eyes were completely undisguised. Lisa, is this really necessary? Even if you want to make a scene, there should be a limit. Who do I work so hard for every day? For myself? Whatever you like. What haven't I bought for you? I exhaled. Forget it. There was no reasoning with him. I picked up my luggage and turned to leave. David stared fixedly at my back. It was almost a low roar. Lisa, you're really something. That night in the hotel, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Somewhere in my chest, there was a dense, endless ache that lasted the entire night. But early the next morning, my phone was flooded with all kinds of messages. Not from David, but from my mother. She scolded me mercilessly, saying I did not know what was good for me. After all these years together, what could not be solved? In her eyes, every problem was me making a fuss over nothing. She said that if I left David, all my youth would have been wasted. I would have gained nothing, and I would instead become an old maid. My best friend Roxana also called to persuade me. As she spoke, she began crying, because she had just caught her husband cheating, and he even had an illegitimate child. Life's grinding had already worn her down until she was exhausted, but she still advised me not to break up. She said men were all like that. They all got distracted, but as long as they had not done anything out of line, it meant this person still had a sense of responsibility. She said that if I let go, I would only make things easier for someone else. She seemed to have taken Ava as the mistress who had destroyed her own family and used every ugly word she could to curse her. The light in my eyes dimmed, as if covered by a layer of ash. Was there really no feeling left at all? There was. But precisely because I had loved so deeply, it hurt even more. Then I was submerged by an even deeper, heavier exhaustion. David and I had only been broken up for 1 month before we were pushed back together. We got back together, but our two hearts seemed separated by a very, very long distance. I was afraid of arguments, afraid of tearful complaints, afraid of bringing up old grievances. So after getting back together, I became the perfect girlfriend. But after enough time passed, even staying in the same room felt too crowded for two people. A dead, silent heart did not seem to heal its wounds just because the surface was calm. Chapter 6. These days, I kept telling myself that everything would get better. Now David and I no longer argued. If we just continued step by step, we should get married, right? Mom always said that once men got married, their burdens became heavier, and they would focus more on their own little family. I did not refute her by asking why my good friend Roxana had walked into marriage yet failed to obtain happiness. But at least for now, I truly still clung to this peace. During that month apart, I did not sleep well even once. As soon as I closed my eyes, the past surged up. Tears fell uncontrollably, and my heart felt as if it were stuffed with a ball of cotton, blocked so tightly that I could not breathe. I cried until I was dizzy. My nose was blocked, my face swollen and aching, and I had lost several pounds. I could not accept the fact of the breakup. But looking at that haggard face in the mirror, I also knew I could not keep going like that. I forced myself to eat, but while eating, I broke down and cried. By 2 in the morning, I had cried until my whole body trembled, nearly fainting. Forcibly cutting out someone who had been carved into your life was like gouging out your heart and slicing away flesh. At the end, when I could no longer cry, I looked at the photos on my phone and lay alone on the bed, my eyes vacant. Every photo was a beautiful piece of the past. Sweet scenes replayed over and over in my mind, and the internal torment nearly drove me insane. The worst emotional backlash sent me straight to the hospital. Mom held my hand, tears falling one after another. She raised her hand and smoothed my hair, again and again. Lisa, stop torturing yourself, okay? Mom's heart aches for you. Mom doesn't ask anything else of you. I just want you to be well. If you want to get back together but can't lower your pride to say it, Mom will help you say it. Mom was wrong. Mom really was wrong. Stop hurting yourself. You're stabbing Mom's heart. If something happens to you, how can Mom keep living? So it turned out that during the days when I was losing sleep and weight, I had not been torturing only myself, but also the family who loved me. Mom's tears burned against my back, burning so hot that my heart trembled. I bit my lower lip hard and sobbed until I could not speak. It felt as if a massive stone were pressing on my chest, heavy and suffocating, leaving me unable to breathe. I regretted it. I regretted sinking myself into that downward pulling emotion. I regretted losing myself, even if my rational mind understood everything clearly. When the night grew deep and quiet, my emotions would still swallow me whole. Let a dull knife slowly grind away. It was fine. It would get better. One day, it would pass. However, I never expected that Mom would call David over. She was afraid that if I kept going on like this, I would do something irreversible. Lisa, he called my name in a trembling voice. In that instant, the emotions I had already suppressed surged up violently again, together with those memories, setting off towering waves in my heart once more. I had never seen him like this before. He wanted to speak but did not dare. Wanted to touch me but did not dare. In the end, he gently rested his head against my palm and began speaking in a rambling voice. I'm sorry, I didn't take good care of you, and I shouldn't have fought with you out of spite. When you're discharged, let me take you home, okay? The defenses I had built one after another in my heart collapsed completely. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to drive him away. But I opened my mouth and could not say anything. The huge hole in my heart seemed able to stop bleeding only when he was by my side. I was in too much pain. So much pain that it tore my heart apart. So much pain that I wanted to find an exit and escape. Being by his side was painful, but leaving him was even more painful. I could only choose the lesser of two evils. Make myself feel a little better, and let my emotions ease for a while. I smiled and nodded, but my tears fell rapidly. Chapter 7. I changed the bad habits I had before, just as David had once hoped. I gave him enough freedom and space. At first, the atmosphere between us became much more relaxed. David came home on time, and occasionally, he even bought me gifts. Slowly, he discovered that I really would not get angry because he came home late. So he came back later and later. 11 o'clock. Midnight, 2 in the morning. The gifts he brought back became more and more expensive too. I calmly placed them one by one on the glass shelf, until the shelf was full, and David froze for a moment. Why aren't you using the bags I bought? I was doing my skincare and casually replied. I haven't been going out much lately. I don't need them. It's late. Go rest. David did not move. His voice was hoarse. Lisa, you've been so obedient lately. It doesn't quite feel like you. There was a hint of probing in his tone. Is it because I added cilantro, which you don't like, to the food last time? Or because I went on a last-minute business trip with Ava 2 days ago and missed our anniversary? Hearing Ava's name, my heart shifted slightly, but it was only a momentary ripple before everything returned to calm. I placed my hand over my chest, feeling my heart beat, one pulse after another. The old fear and tension that used to make my heart feel hollow and bottomless at the mere mention of her name had disappeared. Had I finally become able to look at this relationship calmly and lightly? Or was I only deceiving myself, pretending not to care? I could not tell. My world had already collapsed and been rebuilt. I did not want to experience another heavy blow. The thought of giving up or continuing pulled back and forth in my mind, over and over again. Seeing me silent, panic flashed through David's eyes. A trace of pleasure actually rose in my heart. He was afraid. What was he afraid of? That this relationship would collapse completely? I laughed out loud, louder and louder, so he could feel my emotions. He could sense that I was pulling away bit by bit. He knew all of it, but he had still chosen to keep hurting me. Now that he realized I did not love him as much anymore, he began to be afraid. For a relationship to reach this point, it had somehow become nothing but weighing gains and losses. David. My voice was so calm that it did not sound like me. His face turned slightly pale, and he interrupted me. You haven't messaged me for several days. He took out his phone and held it in front of me, flipping through our chat history. You used to send me dozens of messages a day. Now the page is almost entirely me talking to you. I shared things with you first, but you didn't reply to a single one. Lisa. This isn't right. We agreed before that we couldn't neglect each other. I raised my eyes and carefully looked at the man in front of me. Compared to university, his appearance now carried a little more maturity, and his brows and eyes still held a cool, handsome sharpness. Over the years, he had gained status and money, but he had also been thoroughly stained by the secular world. He had achieved success far beyond his peers, and at the same time, it had made him arrogant and contemptuous of everything. Was this person really the one I had loved back then? When he had driven me into madness and hysteria, he had watched calmly from the side, as if the person who had turned me into this was not him. The wall in my heart suddenly collapsed in an instant. Together with it, the transparent filter covering him shattered all at once, revealing his original appearance. The pimples on his face, the blackheads on his nose, those flaws suddenly magnified in my eyes, growing larger and larger. I subconsciously took a step back. David's tone became more and more urgent. You were the one who said that if something happened, we had to communicate and discuss it. What are you doing now? He took a deep breath, as if forcibly suppressing some emotion. Forget it. My family has been urging us. Let's get married. What date do you want to set? Where should we hold the banquet? Your family's side or mine? Seeing that I had no reaction, he suddenly became irritable. The veins on his forehead bulged. Lisa, I said we're getting married. Say something. Perhaps anger had clouded his mind. Like a madman, with red eyes, he pressed me into the corner and punched downward. The pain I imagined did not fall. His hand smashed into the wall, and blood flowed through the gaps between his fingers. I looked at him, and suddenly realized. So this was what it felt like to watch someone go mad. Chapter 8. David took a deep breath and tiredly rubbed the center of his brows. You're in a bad mood. I won't argue with you. I just want you to care about me more. I changed my sitting position and rubbed my neck. Don't curse me. I'm in a pretty good mood. After saying that, I moved a little farther to the side, putting more distance between us. The moment feelings faded, the first thing that surged up was physiological disgust. His face, his hands, even every inch of his body. I could not help wondering whether another woman had touched them. David froze for quite a while before reacting, his eyes red. He looked at me. Lisa, are you rejecting me? I turned my head aside, avoiding his gaze. You're emotionally unstable right now. Calm down by yourself. I stood up, planning to go to the balcony for some air. The wind blew over, scattering some of the chaotic emotions in my mind, and I became much clearer. Before long, David followed me. Next week is my grandma's birthday. She wants to invite your family too. When I heard that, I regretfully patted my forehead. I'm sorry, I forgot about this. I didn't prepare a gift in advance either. My parents are going traveling next week, so they can't make it. David's grandmother had always treated me very well, no matter from the angle of feeling or reason. This was indeed my negligence. David suddenly grabbed my shoulders, his voice trembling slightly. You never forgot in all these years. Now you forgot? I could only repeat the same sentence over and over. I'm sorry. He let go dejectedly. Then, as if he had thought of something, he walked to the calendar and looked at it. When he looked at me again, his expression had clearly relaxed, carrying the relief of someone who had survived a disaster. I knew it. It must be because your period is coming soon. It's okay, Lisa. We still have a long future ahead of us. I shouldn't have been too anxious. I didn't consider that you weren't ready yet. He paused, and his voice softened. I won't force you. I'll talk to Grandma. I interrupted him. No need, David. Let's break up. The moment the words left my mouth, an indescribable sense of ease surged up in my heart. It seemed I had truly let myself go. Everything had changed in the end. David's pupils suddenly contracted, and his voice tightened. Why? Give me a reason. Tell me why. Chapter 9. I quietly looked at him, my heart complicated. His gaze stayed on my face. It was a focus and deep affection I had not seen in a long time. David, I don't want to keep living with you anymore. I took a deep breath and spoke slowly. From the time we got back together until now, I actually thought I could endure it, that I could let everything from before pass. After all, compared to leaving you, those pains seemed like nothing. But that isn't the truth. Those hurts are like wounds that can never heal. I can never get past them. If we continue like this, either we'll share the same bed but dream different dreams, together in appearance but divided at heart, or I'll spend the rest of my life in gloom. Don't think that just because I didn't catch you and her lying in the same bed, I can pretend nothing happened. David, you know better than anyone what you were really thinking. David's fingers curled slightly, his entire body froze in place, and his mind went completely blank. He truly felt afraid. I can fix it. I'll delete all her contact information. I'll apply to have her transferred out of my department. His voice trembled, carrying a trace of pleading. Can we not break up? Looking at the tears in his eyes, pain spread from my fingertips to my shoulders, even dragging a tight ache through my chest. His eyes were red, and his entire body was trembling. You still resent me. I know it was my fault, but why can't you give me another chance to start over? After all these years, am I not even worthy of one chance to change? Why sentence me to death directly and not even give me the chance to make it up to you? I raised my hand and gently wiped the tears from one side of my face, shifting my gaze toward the window. David, I can't trust you anymore, and I don't want to constantly guess how far you've gone with someone else. During the days after we got back together, you thought we had reconciled, but to me, it felt more like exposure therapy. The man who had just been emotional seemed to have had a pause button pressed on him. David lost his footing and almost fell. In the end, he simply sat down on the floor. When he lifted his eyes, 2 lines of tears fell from the corners of his eyes. I suppressed the ache in my chest and only after much effort found my voice. David, do you know? A couple of days ago, a huge moth flew into the house. It was bigger than my palm. I didn't dare catch it. But do you know what my first reaction was? I instinctively wanted to message you, but then I felt you definitely wouldn't reply. I wanted to call you, but then I felt you definitely wouldn't answer. Even if you did answer, you might not necessarily come over and help me catch it. At that instant, I felt especially pathetic. David's pupils trembled. Then his expression became extremely panicked, and his whole body seemed at a loss. He felt as if a steel bar had pierced through his heart, hurting so much that he could not breathe. David hurriedly got up and wanted to wipe my tears. But the more his hands wiped, the more my tears fell, until our eyes met. And he finally broke down too, tears bursting from his eyes. He used the rough pad of his finger to gently rub the tear mole at the corner of my eye. His voice choked with sobs. Stop crying, okay? The more you cry, the bigger the tear mole will get. You once said you didn't like this tear mole and even said it grew because you cried too much. He laughed at himself. At the time, I even smiled and promised you that I would never make you cry again. After a long while, he took a deep breath, as if using all the strength in his body. I didn't do it. If my existence makes you suffer this much, then I'll let go. I'm sorry. Everything was my fault. David felt as if a hole had been torn in his heart, cold wind pouring through it and chilling his whole body. Even the tears that flowed to his lips tasted bitter. I turned to leave, but David tightly grabbed my hand and refused to let go. He hugged me tightly from behind, so tightly, as if the moment he loosened his hold, I would vanish. Chapter 10. Lisa. His pleading gaze was just like the day he and I confirmed our relationship. Back then, he quietly came to hold my hand. That hand slowly reaching toward mine had been trembling uncontrollably the entire time, its palms soaked with sweat. He leaned close to me and, in a very, very small voice, with a little shyness and expectation, begged me to hold his hand a little longer and never let go. At this moment, under his gaze full of hope, I slowly raised my hand and gently rubbed his hair. David, this time, I won't hold it. David's eyes froze. It was as if something shattered along with them. A deep despair impossible to describe in words instantly swept through his entire body. His lips trembled violently beyond his control, and his eyes were so red they looked as if they would drip blood. His tall body seemed to lose its support all at once, hunching slightly. Then he slowly crouched down, curling into a ball, motionless, like an abandoned statue. This time, I was truly leaving. It took me 2 full days to pack up my things. When I came to take the very last of my belongings, I waited outside the door for a long time before David finally came over slowly to open it. The moment the door opened, what entered my eyes was a vast sea of flowers. The entire room had been carefully arranged into a romantic proposal scene. David knelt on one knee in front of me, his eyes full of nervousness and expectation. His voice carried a slight tremble. Lisa, I want to fight for a suspended sentence for myself. Give me one more chance, okay? Once. Even eating a steaming bowl of noodles with him at a roadside stall would make me feel that it was the happiest and most beautiful thing in the world. But now, before my eyes were large bouquets of fresh, delicate flowers, a glittering ring, and the proposal scene I had once dreamed of. Yet I could not feel happiness. Things that had already passed the moment when they were most needed and most wanted lost their meaning when obtained later. I curved my eyes. No. Chapter 11. Looking at Lisa's retreating figure, David's world turned gray at that moment. He stood there blankly, his thoughts drifting uncontrollably back to many years ago. Back then, they had just left campus and were being harshly pulled at by the embarrassment of reality. They were short on money, and life was tight. In order to give Lisa a better life, David got up at 4 every morning and worked 3 jobs in a row. The high-intensity work overburdened his body. He became so exhausted that he developed a high fever and myocarditis. During that period, Lisa stayed by his hospital bed every day, making him meals in all kinds of different ways. Her heart ached for him, and she often secretly wiped away tears behind his back. Those silent sobs struck David's heart again and again, but every time Lisa appeared in his sight, he would smile. At that time, he thought that once life got better in the future, he would take her to every fun place and eat every delicious thing with her. Then, when they both grew old, they would find a place with a pleasant climate and beautiful scenery to settle down, plant flowers and grass together, leisurely bask in the warm sunlight, and enjoy a plain yet happy old age. He thought he would treat Lisa well for the rest of his life. But later, he left her alone. Thinking of this, David's heart filled with regret. He slowly buried his face in his palms, and tears slid uncontrollably through the gaps between his fingers. Chapter 12. After leaving David, I confessed the breakup to my mother. Worry instantly filled my mother's eyes, pressing a sour ache into my heart. I gently held my mother's hand and smiled as I comforted her. Mom, don't worry about me. People always have to stumble over a few hurdles before they can understand. The next day, I bought plane tickets to Yunnan and decided to take Mom on a trip. A person's life could not always be planned within the same circle. My mother had been bound for half her life by the belief that marriage is a woman's destination. That was because she had been influenced by the ideas of her time. But I did not need to trap myself to death. Those places I had once longed for, I would set out toward them again with myself. The sky in Yunnan was as blue as a sapphire, and the clouds drifted leisurely like cotton fluff. David sent me messages every day, just as I had once cared for him. He carefully planned routes for me every time, checked the weather forecast for me, and reminded me to bring all kinds of things. But I only replied to those messages lightly. There's no need to send unnecessary trivialities. He quieted down for a few days, and then Ava invaded my social media. She accused me of still clinging to David after breaking up and cursed me for not knowing how to cherish him. I calmly replied to her, "Take him if you want him." Then I sent the screenshots to David and blocked them both. At that moment, the world returned to peace. As for whether the two of them would entangle themselves together in the future, that already had nothing to do with me, and I no longer wanted to care. I put all my energy into the trip before me, embracing the breeze and feeling the beauty of the scenery. I wore ethnic clothing and sang and danced with the locals. Amid the cheerful rhythm, I laughed and jumped freely, as if releasing all the pain of the past. When I looked back, I saw my mother holding a camera, smiling brightly, her eyes full of comfort and pride. During our days in Yunnan, my mother and I tasted delicious food, visited ancient temples, and watched sunrises and sunsets together. Every moment was warm and happy. After the trip ended, we returned home. I found a new job and began a new life. In my free time, I would accompany Mom on walks, go shopping with her, or cook a hearty dinner together at home. The imperfection of my 20s gave me a brand new 30s. Lisa, please keep this happiness.